Welcome back to the All Things Dead podcast, a podcast about everything in the Walking Dead universe. From The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, Walking Dead World Beyond, and any future spin-off shows or movies, hopefully one day, can be found here on the All Things Dead podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, if you're watching this in the video version, thank you so much. The video version can be found on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. That is another podcast I do. That one's mainly sports, football, and non-football related. But until I decide to make it its own separate channel, it can be found on the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. If you're listening to the audio version can be found anywhere that podcasts can be listened to. Please leave it a review. If you can subscribe to it. If you follow it, share it out. I appreciate it so much. On the YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button, find the playlist of the All Things Dead, and please subscribe to it to get that up, to get this out there. Thank you so much. Today, we are marching on, recapping The Walking Dead. Got a little far behind, so we're going to try to crank these out. We're going to recap Season 1, Episode 4, called Vatos. We pick up where Rick, Daryl, T-Dog, and Glenn went back into the city of Atlanta to go find Merle, Daryl's brother. Because if you remember, Rick handcuffed him, and then T-Dog dropped the key down the drain, and they had to leave him there. Rick found his family, and they had to go back. So we pick up where we left off. When we left off with them, they saw Merle's hand. They saw the handcuff on the pipe. They saw his hand with a bunch of blood, and there was a saw. Now, the ending of the episode kind of gave the impression that Merle was eaten because his hand was left. There was blood. He's not there. And obviously, Daryl's very upset about his brother. And then we get a nice little showdown with Daryl. Basically wanted to kill T-Dog. Rick pointed his gun, saying, I won't let you do this. I won't hesitate. And then Daryl kind of comes back to Earth, and then you kind of show that Merle was able to get the saw and saw off his hand. That saw probably wasn't good enough for the handcuff. And we know that Daryl's a hunter. When we first met Daryl, he was hunting the deer. So we know he is a hunter, and we see this through this part. He's looking at the blood trail saying, okay, he cut off his hand, probably wrapped his arm up with a belt, and tried to escape. So they are now following a blood trail. You find another part of the building with another door that was open that leads to another part of this building where there's a bunch of offices, and now they are on the move to go find Merle. Back at our camp, there's a small issue. Like this episode was a good episode, but it was a good episode for our group in Atlanta. It's good for Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus and them, as those characters. And Glenn, and you get to see the smartness of Glenn. But anyway, back at the camp, not a lot happens back at camp. You get a lot of fish from Amy and Andrea, the two sisters. They talk about their dad, how he taught them how to fish and tie knots. So, and they talk about in a funny way of who knew learning how to fish was going to help in the apocalypse. So maybe all of us need to learn how to go do stuff like that. Then we have our character Jim, who is just kind of digging holes. Then you have Dale trying to talk to him about, what's going on with you, everything okay? He's not answering. And then, that's just kind of where it is. He's digging a hole, not talking. The sun's out there in Georgia. It's hot. Kind of really all that's going on. We'll get back to the group. Then you go back to Atlanta. And I know this could possibly be out of order, but this episode is what you'll hear a lot from The Walking Dead, a quote-unquote filler episode. Some exciting things happen, some, whatever, and then at the end, big things happen. Back to our group, they're still looking for Merle. They do see trail of him killing walkers. They have to kill a couple of their own, but they're following him, and then they come across like a kitchen with the stove still on. a belt that Daryl had mentioned, and I don't know what they're called. They flattened the burgers with them. It looked like he took it with the hot iron, put it where his stub would have been to close up where he cut off his hand to try to stop an infection. And they find a broken window, and so Merle is alive. Merle is alive. Good or bad, whatever you think of Merle. Is that good for our group? He is alive out there somewhere in the city of Atlanta. Daryl is very fixated on going to find him. See more confrontation with him and T-Dog, and a little bit with Rick. But Rick is trying to be the voice of reason. He's basically telling Daryl, hey, we can go find him, but you got to remember there's hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of walkers. We have to think about this logically because we don't want to go out there and get killed. And he understands why he wants to go find Merle, but at the same time, to help them, they have to go find the guns. Rick had dropped a bag of guns that he took from his police station when he first met Morgan in the first episode. He said, if we go find those and we're equipped, we can sneak around very quietly and try to find Merle. Fast forward back to our guys at camp again. The stuff at camp's not very exciting. The last episode was exciting when we had Shane essentially beat down Ed, which, good or bad, I supported because Ed is a piece of work, treating Carol and his daughter Sophia that way. Back at the camp, Dale brings attention to Shane and everybody else that Jim's up there just digging and we have a problem, like what's going on. And the group confronts Jim, and we kind of get a little glimpse of what's going through his mind. Kind of looks like he's lost it, basically. Shane's trying to talk to him like, hey, man, what are you doing? Like, you're just digging holes. You're kind of scaring the group. You're scaring the kids. Just stop digging. Let's go. We have a lot of fish we can clean and cook. We can eat. And then he goes, and then I'll come back and help you dig the holes. If you just come hang out with us, come talk to us, it's all good. Then we kind of get what's going through Jim's mind and maybe what's going through others' mind. He said, what are you going to do if I don't stop? Are you going to beat me to death like Ed because someone crossed you? Who made you in charge? Who made you the king of us? Who allowed you to tell us what to do? And so it's that mindset of like the before the apocalypse of like, we don't like to be told what to do unless they're our boss because they hired us. And he has a point. Shane didn't hire him, but Shane seems like the only person equipped to handle the apocalypse. He's a police officer. They're going through tough times. He seems like he understands how the world or the nature works. So I think it's just in this apocalypse, you just gravitate towards a leader, and probably we don't know what happened, how they gravitated towards each other. And then have a little confrontation. Shane tackles him, and then we kind of find maybe why Jim's mind is losing it. He kind of comes out to everybody and says, like, I'm not a good person. I lost my family. Or Shane told him it was going to be okay. And Jim's like, no, that's the biggest lie, because I told my family that. I told my family they'd be okay. He said the walkers literally took them from my hands and was eating them. And the only reason why I escaped was because they were eating my family. So Jim doesn't seem like a stable person. This is probably in the back of his mind. Like at the initial part of it is trying to survive. Now that they're kind of comfortable in this camp, he sees people tearing each other apart with Shane beating down Ed. Probably like that Rick found his family. That probably stings a little bit. And so he probably just lost his mind, but he's just up there digging holes. And so the group has contained that. And so they're good. Back in Atlanta, we find out how smart Glenn really is. He comes up he draws up the city of Atlanta, saying, okay, the bags are here. We're going to have this plan. I'm going to go get them. You guys are going to be in different spots on these blocks. So in case something happens, I have somebody to run to. They have Daryl has his crossbow. Rick has a few bullets. T-Dog has a weapon. So just find out, and then you find out Glenn was just a pizza delivery guy, but he's very smart on how he's going about this to go get the bag of guns. And it worked. They were set up pretty well. He grabbed the bag of guns. He's running from the walkers. And then Daryl comes in contact with someone else. And now we see, oh my gosh, there's somebody else. There's more. And this guy, like, I'm watching it and I'm cringing because this guy's screaming. And Daryl's telling him to be quiet. Like, have you seen Merle? Have you seen somebody walking around? That's all Daryl was asking. And he's screaming, and these walkers are going to come to them. And then you got two more guys jump in, and they start wailing on Daryl. And then Glenn shows up, and all of a sudden you find out what they're there for. They say, we're here for the guns. There's the guns. So now there's more people. You know, it went from Rick finding Morgan, coming into Atlanta, coming across our group, which led to his family, and there's more people. And now there's three or four more people here trying to get this bag of guns. So they're not alone. Rick and T-Dog show up, and they take Glenn as a hostage. And they take him as a hostage, and then they keep this guy they found, and now they're starting to question him. Starting to be like, that's the first question. Where are they taking Glenn? Have you seen Merle? So now we're missing Glenn. We don't know where Merle is. We have this guy. We don't know who he is, but we have the bag of guns. Rick and Daryl and T-Dog start questioning this guy, trying to figure out what's going on. What happened? Funny part was Daryl shot one of the guys in the butt with an arrow, which was pretty funny. And trying to figure out who this guy is, and he goes, G's going to come get you. And we find out this guy named G, I believe, is the leader of his group. And, you know, Daryl then threatens him to cut off his hand, cut off his foot, and all that. And they kept Merle's hand. I forgot to mention that. Daryl put Merle's hand in a bag, threw the hand at him, and said, this is what I do to people that, you know, cross us. So it's kind of good he kept it. So now they have to hatch a plan, and this guy takes him to where his group is, and we find out there's more people out there. There's this group. It looks like, you know, not to hate. It just kind of, you know, a bunch of people come out, and it kind of reminds me of Sons of Anarchy. Anybody watch Sons of Anarchy, where you have the biker clubs? This looks like a biker club that comes out and find out that they wanted the guns. And Rick's like, what the hell are you talking about? These are my guns. And they don't know that Rick brought them, but we all do, and they want the guns. And so Daryl and Rick are trying to trade this dude for Glenn. They're not having it. They said, we'll trade him, but we want all the guns. If you don't, we'll kill Glenn. You got time to think about it. This guy named G, you meet, he comes out, and, you know, he's you know, trying to bark orders to Rick. And, you know, this guy saying, yeah, man, they're going to cut off my hand, they're going to cut off my feet. The cops really do that. And so right there, they're kind of in a bad spot, showing that they were going to torture their guy and, like, you know, everything else. And so now they have to come up with a plan. I told you this episode's kind of like a filler. Like, the acting's great. When you're watching this, it's amazing in the apocalypse when you've got Rick Grimes, who handcuffed someone's brother on the roof, and Daryl is now working with him to find him. So you have them coming together. So maybe that's just part of this apocalypse where they come together. But the acting from them is phenomenal. It's just, this is like a filler episode where, you know, just kind of things to get them to flow through and get us to the next episode, or at least till the end, because at the end, you know, a lot of stuff happens. We go back to camp. You know, they have Jim tied up to a tree, and they're figuring out Jim is apologizing, like, I'm so sorry. He lost his mind. He had some type of dream, and it bothered him, and he can't remember the dream. They think he had a lot of heat exhaustion. He said he kind of remembers Rick and them leaving, and then kind of remembers the Ed thing, and then he just doesn't remember anything anymore. So we're just going to go with he lost his mind. He talked about his family, and it's a lot to lose your family right in front of you, and then the apocalypse happens, and now you got to survive with people you don't know if you can trust. He just kind of lost his mind, but he apologized to Carl, apologized to everybody. They let him out, and they're going to have this fish fry. Everything's good. So camp seems fine. You know, Andrea's looking to wrap up. She took, if you remember back in the first episode, I think it's dolphins, and, you know, she wants to take this dolphin. She looks at Rick and goes, but I don't want to take something in front of a police officer, and those rules don't apply anymore, type of thing. And so, yeah, the group seems to be okay. You know, she doesn't want to take in front of Rick. They took the dolphin. You found out from Andrea that Amy's birthday is the next day, I think. So she wanted to wrap it up. They're having a good old time at camp. And we go back to Rick and Daryl and T-Dog. They have to come up with a plan. And it's amazing what Rick's willing to do for Glenn. Daryl basically says, so you're going to give up all the guns for him. This guns could protect your family, could protect all of us, and you're really going to give that up for a guy you don't know. And he's talking about Glenn, and Rick had to basically say what goes through his mind of Glenn saved me. He goes, I was a guy in a tank surrounded by hundreds of walkers, and he rescued me. He helped me out, and I cannot leave him behind. So now you see kind of getting the mindset of Rick of he's trying to think of others before himself. And like we said before, we knew in the first episode before the apocalypse, Rick's marriage was rocky. When Rick was talking about doing this to leave to go back, you could see how Lori and Rick were tiffing. So you can kind of see a glimpse into their pre-apocalypse marriage. Maybe he puts people before himself all the time. Maybe he puts some people before his family or before himself, anything else. But then Rick's like, this is what Rick's mind says. He goes, Daryl says you're going to give him the guns. He goes, I didn't say that. So he's like loading up the guns and says, you guys can leave. You guys can leave. There's nothing holding you here. I will go and get Glenn. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And then they go there. They have the guns ready. And G, and I believe his name's G. I see you have the guns, but they're not all in the bag. I told you I wanted all the guns in the bag. I wanted my guy, and we'll give you back Glenn. And Rick comes in basically saying, like, I'm ready to shoot every one of you. I will kill every one of you to try to get Glenn back. So Rick is right there, ready to sacrifice himself for Glenn because Glenn saved him. Like, Rick is still having that mindset of I'm a police officer, and I think Rick, I don't know if at this point Rick can kind of see that the apocalypse, he kind of sees it's changed some people. The rules are different. But I think he's still holding on to some of morals and some of the things that we all hold to this day in this world that we have that's not an apocalypse. And then it's kind of funny. They're getting ready to shoot everybody. Everybody's about to shoot each other. And then you have this grandma come out and you find out, I believe his name is Felipe. It's his grandma, and she's like, what's going on? And she sees Rick in a police uniform and like, oh, are you here to arrest Felipe? I promise you he's a good boy. Like, what did he do? And so Rick had to tell him, like, he's trying to help us find somebody, ma'am. And she's like, the Asian boy? And he goes, yeah. So she takes him back there, and now it's like, this isn't even dangerous people at all. She takes him back there, and you see like this nursing home. It's a bunch of old people. It's a bunch of people helping out the old people. They find Glenn just standing there around people, old people, like nothing's happened. I believe it's G. I know that's probably not the character. He basically tells Rick, like, yeah. Well, Rick gets mad. Like, do you realize I was coming here ready to kill every one of you? Like, that blood would have been on my hands if I came in and killed somebody. If I killed all of you to get my friend back. Like, you should have just said, like, hey, we're not dangerous. This is what happened. Just talk to us. But this kind of shows, again, like I've said, this kind of shows the change from the apocalypse. And again, I think Rick sees that. I think that's why Rick is holding on so to who he is. And, we'll see if that changes throughout the episodes. But he's trying to hold on. Like, he saw what Merle acts like. He's probably seen how people, he's seeing this. And he's like holding on to what we all do now in the real world here with no apocalypse. And then you find out that this guy was a janitor. When everything fell, he said all the doctors and most of the nurses just left for these old people to die. And so they all stayed. Family members of these people stayed. He stayed. They all looked to him for some reason. He said they scavenged for medicine. They try to do whatever they can for food and supplies. And he said they had seen the bag of guns before or was waiting it out to try to go get them, and that's why they were after him. They honestly didn't want to hurt them. They said, but there are groups out there that are taking people, he said. They're taking them, and he didn't know if they were a part of it, so it was all making sense. But again, just showing what the apocalypse does to people, what can happen. And Rick's like, okay, you're a good person. Gave him some guns and some ammo just out of good faith. And it's like, some of this is yours, but I have to take the rest back for our group. As much as I want to help you out, I've got to help my group out first. So it was just kind of, that's why this is a filler episode where you look like a lot of things are going to happen. You're going to have this fight or whatever. And it's just like, nope, they are people acting tough to give that persona. And they're helping people. They're helping old people in a nursing home and good for them. Then they just kind of have to get back to their van to get back. They have the guns. It's probably too dangerous to go looking for Merle. They come across and their U-Haul van they have was gone. And their first reaction is Merle took it. And if Merle took it, he's going back to camp and he is not happy. He's not happy at all. So now they have to try to get back to their camp as quickly as possible. Now here's kind of where this has been a filler episode. Like I said, great acting. I really like to see the dynamic of Glenn and Daryl and Rick. And then back at camp to kind of see Shane kind of take a step back, taking a deep breath, being more calm with things. We fast forward to camp. They're having a fish fry. They built up this fire. They have the bricks around it to where the fire can't be seen. Like, it's just a grand old time. And then you have Ed, and they had Ed in the tent who he wanted Carol and his daughter to stay with him. His face is messed up from Shane. Yeah, you got your ass kicked, and he doesn't want to come out. Then all of a sudden they get overrun by walkers. Walkers show up, and there's people in this group we have not met. There was other people there we have not met. We are just focusing on, when they focus on a core group of them, you probably know they're somewhat main characters or they're somewhat just important to the story. There was other people there, and walkers come and just start eating everybody. And I going back and rewatching The Walking Dead, I forgot how dark it could be, how gory it could be, seeing the skin be ripped off the bone, seeing all this blood, and like Ed gets bitten and eaten, and a bunch of other people are getting bitten and eaten, and they're trying to kill the walkers. And then luckily Rick and Daryl, Glenn, and T-Dog show up with the weapons and more people, and they're killing the walkers. But then Amy gets like part of her neck ripped out from a walker, and it kind of ends with them all killing the walkers. Rick grabs Lori and Carl. Morales grabs his family, his wife and kids. But Carol and Sophia lost Ed, who the husband and father. Other people were eaten and killed. And it ends with Andrea looking over Amy, her sister, who she was going to give her a gift. It was her birthday the next day. She has part of her neck down, and she dies right there. And it ends, and there's so much blood. It ends in this gory thing, and that's kind of how it ends. So this is what we call in The Walking Dead a filler episode, but the difference between future episodes, from what I can remember, like I said, rewatching this, guys, I do not remember all this. It's really cool to go back and watch this and see how much it's changed. Like I said, the walkers used to sprint in season 1. I completely forgot about it. Back into, later on The Walking Dead, where they're not quite like that. Looking back how much blood there was and the gore, and and it kind of shows you can never let your guard down in the apocalypse. You've got to be on your toes the whole time, and that's where it ends. And that's what we call a filler episode. But like I said, future filler episodes sometimes are literally what they are, the filler episodes. Yeah, maybe some interesting things happen, but it doesn't do anything big. Like I said, the acting was cool. It's showing that there's more people out there. Where's Merle? That's another thing we're going to talk about. Where's Merle? They come back to the camp. Merle was not there. Where's Merle? What happened there? And then how it ended. Like, that ended abruptly. Like, that ended huge. So this filler episode, the difference between now and the future is some filler episodes don't have there's a little bit of a point, but it's not exciting. This ended very excitingly, kind of. And it kind of shows they all thought they were safe. They talked about how they lived in the woods because there's no way they can come up that hill. And the walkers proved them wrong. But that's where it ended. We're going to have to deal with the repercussions of it when we recap the next episode, season 1, episode 5. We're going to have to see the repercussions because when I'm watching this, you remember Shane said, you're going to take some of our men to the city. We need everybody here to protect everything. And then the question is, during these episodes, you've seen them lay out like strings with cans on them So when they walk through, you hear the cans. Well, nobody heard that. They just came through. So where did they come from? How they get up the hill? Shane made that point of protecting. Are we going to have, we had the repercussion of when he left with Lori and Shane. We have to deal with it. So there's stuff we have to deal with still in this first season. So we had our filler episode. It's got to continue to move forward. So there it is. We recapped episode 4 of season 1. When we come back to the next episode where we get to season 1, episode 5, and I believe there's only 6 episodes. So only 2 more in the season, and then we'll get on to season 2. I love rewatching this. Again, I hope everybody out there listening or watching enjoys this. Please leave a comment, a thumbs up. Again, the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel is where the video is. Please subscribe to that, and there will be you don't have to watch the other stuff on the Coach Steve Show. It's all football stuff. There's non-football stuff. There's Marvel stuff like that. But if you don't want to watch that, if you go to YouTube, subscribe to it. Go to the playlist. There will be an All Things Dead podcast playlist. That's where all the video parts will be. The audio version can be found anywhere you're listening to podcast. On that, please follow it, leave a review, give it a star, all that stuff. So please, guys, subscribe, thumbs up, leave a comment. Enjoy rewatching these. Hope somebody gets something out of this. And we'll see you guys next time.